Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. You're with me here on The Roger Stone Show this beautiful Sunday afternoon, and joining me now is former New York City police officer Salvatore Greco. Sal Greco is a 14-year veteran of the New York Police Department, a man with an unblemished record of service to the people of New York, sometimes pulling the graveyard shift in some of the most dangerous parts of New York City. He has a record, a number of arrests for DUI, but he's a man who's been abused by the NYPD. If you do a little bit of research, you'll find that because Sal Greco is a supporter of President Donald J. Trump and also a friend of mine, he was terminated by the New York City Police Department after January 6th, even though neither he nor I were at the Capitol, nor had any involvement whatsoever in the illegal actions of January 6th. There have been multiple investigations that prove that. Reuters reported as early as March of the first year of the Biden presidency that their investigation showed that I had no involvement with any of the so-called organizations that were ultimately charged with crimes. Nonetheless, the NYPD terminated Sal Greco, and they did so in a most corrupt manner. They technically dismissed him under a New York City police regulation that says, and Sal can help me here in a moment, but that he cannot associate with those who it can be reasonably believed were involved in the past or may be involved in the future in crimes. Well, unfortunately, that would include New York City Police Captain Eric Adams, because, well, he writes in his own biography that he provided paid outside off-duty bodyguard services for Reverend Louis Farrakhan and Mike Tyson, both convicted felons. But that just scratches the surface in the willful violation of the current brass of NYPD, who violate that regulation under which Sal Greco was terminated. Sal Greco lost his life savings, lost his dream job. He was proud to be a police officer and serve the people, and he's sued the New York Police Department. The city has tried twice to have that lawsuit dismissed, and both times it has been denied by a federal judge. 7 months ago, the judge ordered NYPD to produce a discovery regarding the termination of Salvatore Greco, and they have flouted that order and provided nothing. So Sal Greco has become a one-man truth squad, and his goal has been to demonstrate that the people who terminated him are violating the very regulation under which he was terminated every single day. Salvatore Greco, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger. It's an honor to be here on the Roger Stone Show once again on WABC.
So, Sal, you've had an extraordinarily difficult road here. You have been steadfast in your efforts for justice. There are multiple examples of the New York City Police Department violating this regulation. I remember specifically, for example, when they had Cardi B, who had a particularly foul-mouthed attack on Donald Trump on the internet this past week, but a woman who's been convicted of gang crimes actually speak at the New York Police Academy. Now, since she can reasonably be believed to have engaged in criminal activity in the past, never mind the future, I would argue that all of those NYPD brass that came in touch with her violated the same regulation they fired you for, but nothing seems to happen. Tell us what's going on here, Sal.
Yeah, so as you stated, the rule that they violated is the same rule they said I violated, because in their eyes, they were stating that you would be the person that is likely to have engaged in or reasonably believed to have engaged in criminal activity. Now, here's the part of this, Roger, that the rule has to apply to every rank in a police department, whether it's uniformed or civilian. So the police commissioner also falls into this rule also. They have to oblige by it. You can't just flout it, and there's no way out. It doesn't have any exceptions to that rule. So, yes, Cardi B did go to the police academy, and at that time it was how my lawsuit originally held up in court. But we didn't know this other part here, Roger. So while, I had met you and I'm hanging out with you and we're friends and I'm supporting Donald Trump, I didn't know that the police department, which is the upper management, now we're talking about chiefs, police commissioner, the upper management, high-ranking people, were associating with an individual by the name of Jimmy Rodriguez Jr. Who is Jimmy Rodriguez Jr.? Okay. Jimmy Rodriguez used to own a place a long time ago in the Bronx called Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. It was very notorious for many reasons. Why? Many notorious characters, nefarious characters were there. There were many shootings that happened there. There were many unsolved murders that happened, a couple unsolved murders. There was drug deals going on there. Major League Baseball banned their own players from attending this place for a couple of years. It was notorious for many negative things that happened in the Bronx. So we come to find out that Jimmy Rodriguez, who owned this one place in the Bronx and many others, is also a mob associate, which was, we found this out by on a podcast by a guy by the name of John Panisi from Sit Down News. And he's also a self-admitted criminal. He's in the New Yorker stating how many times he was arrested, and he was also arrested yet again back in the late 90s. So we come to find out that for every police commissioner, the last four, I believe, was Dermot Shea, Keyshawn Sewell, Eddie Caban, they were associating with Jimmy Rodriguez. And how do we know that? There's pictures and videos of it from the new place that he has. That he's the creator manager of, and it's called Con Sofrito, and it's in the Bronx. But the twist here, Roger, is that the place is owned by the police commissioner now, the current police commissioner, Eddie Caban's brother, Richard Caban. And Richard Caban was a member of the police department. He was a lieutenant that retired out of all things, the narcotics unit. So it looks like Eddie Caban is pictured numerous times with Jimmy Rodriguez. In fact, he has Jimmy Rodriguez at one police plaza. He has him at events. And then we also see the illustrious mayor of New York, the nightlife mayor, as he likes to call himself, Eric Adams. Eric Adams also associated with Jimmy Rodriguez. And it's just a plethora of people hanging out at this place. And unfortunately for them, not only is Jimmy Rodriguez, who would fall under this category, pictured with them, but also numerous other criminals, Roger. We're talking notorious, well-known felon rappers like Fat Joe, Peter Guns. And these people also have been associated with Jimmy for a very long time. Also, Jimmy is also a well-known Democrat operative. Back in the late 90s, he knew Jose Serrano, which was a congressperson, was pictured with him, and Bill Clinton, who was the president at the time. Is another well-known fact. I'm going to just throw this out there. Back when Hillary Clinton ran her original run for Senate, when she announced this, she announced it at a laundromat that was owned by Jimmy Rodriguez, whose partner was then became an informant or was indicted by the feds. And on his door was a receipt from Jimmy's Cafe. So just to tell people that he was closing and that, pick up the money or whatever he owed from the laundromat. I want to just point out how, entrenched this man is with the Democrat apparatus, also the criminality that surrounds all the places he was at, and why and how. And the question is why and how is the police department hanging out at his place along with Eric Adams, and also Letitia James and Carl Hasty and numerous other Democrat politicians in the whole state, the entire state of New York.
So the real question here, I guess, is the double standard. I saw that City and State, the news outlet, actually had a story about these violations at Con Sofrito. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, the dean of journalism in New York City, Greg Smith, wrote an article in the City. He's been following this story. So what we came to find out about Con Sofrito was that they were flouting numerous court orders. So what happened here is that there was a party shed that was conducted illegal. It was constructed illegally on the property, and it was their party room. So you have to understand that the property in itself stands in a zone where it's a special zoning from the 1970s that to even put a structure on a property needs permission from a committee, a special committee. It's impossible to get permission for this. So they constructed this. It's a 161 seated structure. It's about 50 by 100 feet, and they found this to be a public safety hazard and a fire trap. How do we know this? On the day that they awarded a SLA liquor license to Richard Caban, the Department of Buildings went there and told them they had to tear the structure down way back in 2022. So somehow they were operating from that moment on all the way up until today. And also the fire department issued 20 violations stating that the fire suppression system of one of the violations, they don't even have a fire suppression system. So basically, this place operated illegally. On top of that, they were found in court that they were in a workers' compensation case that they got fined by the state for $8,000. So Greg Smith wrote this article as a follow-up because we had found that there was a suit by the landlord to try to evict them. They had put a restraining order that stated in late December, and it says it in this article in the city.nyc. Anyone could read this. And it stated in there that they owed $7,000 in a water bill. Funny how Eric Adams said he wants to enforce people not paying their water bill, but doesn't look at his own friend, Richard Caban. And also that they owed $14,000 in back rent, and all these other numerous things that they owed the landlord. So they told them they had to take the structure down. And of all days, this was late December 2023, they found them on January 6th of 2024 to have another party that was sponsored by Internal Affairs of all things, Roger. As you know, Internal Affairs, you watched them in my own trial, in my department trial. You were there to see how this Sergeant Orenstein was using illegal subpoenas and perjured himself in my own case, along with two other cases in the past. These are the people that were they sponsored this party and this illegal party shed, which they should have done their homework to have this event, the NYPD there. So he had discovered all of these things. So the landlord got them to admit to a stipulated agreement that they also didn't honor. They were going to tear down the shed, pay all these back, whatever they owed, and agreed to leave by August 31st. So the shed remained there. So after March 1st, obviously they gave them a couple of days. They realized they didn't take the shed down, so they were going back and forth in court all the way till the other day, where finally the judge stepped in and said, listen, we're going to have an emergency meeting because you're flouting another court order. And at the 11th hour, Roger, lo and behold, the structure finally was taken down. Finally, after all this time. It took all this time to take this illegal party shed down. The lawyer for the landlord has stated how they were flouting the law. He had no other way around it other than going to the court and asking this judge to get involved. And if it wasn't for the judge, they would still be flouting the law, which shows that, we wonder, Roger, will Letitia James and Carl Hasty, who's the assembly leader, and Eric Adams, and all these characters that are there, Darcel Clark, the Bronx district attorney, you would believe, Roger, that these people, knowing that they know him, empowered him. Because I don't know any other place, Roger, in New York City that has a violation or any kind of violation and doesn't attempt to pay their fines or fix that problem, wouldn't get shut down immediately by the marshals or the sheriffs of New York City.
We do certainly seem to have a two-tiered system here, Sal. Let's go back to your lawsuit if we can. It's now been 3 years. I know you're working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I know you burned through your personal resources to finance this lawsuit. The city has tried 2 times to have it dismissed. It's not going to be dismissed. The egregious double standard by the current police commissioner, who associates with a known convicted felon on an ongoing basis, is just the latest demonstration of this outrage. You have used the internet very, very effectively to bring public attention to the double standard that is being applied to you. What I'm really perplexed about is how the city of New York, or the New York Police Department, I should say, has been ordered to turn over in discovery all of their emails regarding your termination. That was 7 months ago. They still have not done so. Why are they allowed to violate the law with impunity?
Yes, Roger. So what we're doing is we actually have to give a letter to the judge, and the only way we're going to get anything would be if the judge gets involved. There's been numerous delays on trying to get this discovery from the police department. I don't know if it's the law department or the police department or combination, but everything and every agency underneath Eric Adams is in a complete upheaval. As you know, the law department recently, the head of corporation counsel was let go. But as I was told about this situation, she brought up, the former head of the law department brought up to Eric Adams how, as I tried to FOIA request the information, when he's being sued in a sexual assault case from 30 years ago using the very laws they used to get Donald Trump for with the E. Jean Carroll case. So Eric Adams was being sued, and I filed a FOIA request because as a city employee under GML 50K2, you cannot be represented for sexual assault, rape, or anything, any of that kind of behavior, because it doesn't fall under the scope of an active police officer's duty or an employee's duty. So she brought this up to him, and of course there is no letter. And why we know there was no letter? They actually sent it to him. He says there's no such letter to this. So once she brought this up to him, he had her let go by going to Ingrid Lewis, his right-hand woman, and she asked her to resign. So we could see that there's an upheaval here in the law department, Roger. So the problem also is that the city is running at a complete dysfunctional course due to Eric Adams' inept leadership in itself, because he puts all his friends in these positions and lets them do whatever they want.
Very, very well put. Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC Radio. We are talking to veteran New York City police officer Salvatore Greco. Sal has his own show now on the net as he talks about criminal justice issues as well as continuing to fight for justice in his own case. Don't go anywhere at all. Hang on, and we'll be right back.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC. We're talking to former New York City police officer Sal Greco, who served the people of New York City with a flawless record, a spotless record of service in his tenure as a New York police officer, often being detailed to some of the most dangerous precincts in the city for the graveyard shift. He joins us now. Sal, you, as I discussed earlier, you were terminated by NYPD in the wake of the January 6th events. A thorough investigation proved that neither you nor I had anything to do with any illegal activity. We weren't at the Capitol. You were with me in our hotel room. We watched it all on TV. You'll find a lot of crazy people on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying otherwise, but it's not a fact. This past week, former White House staffer Steve Bannon, who now has a very popular show, The War Room, a name he actually stole from my show at InfoWars, my show I used to do with Owen Schroyer. And despite being allowed to remain at liberty on appeal in the case where he was subpoenaed by the January 6th committee and flouted that subpoena, I think some people were surprised when the judge ordered his immediate incarceration, which I believe comes up, I think he has to surrender July 1st. Having been through the meat grinder of the D.C. system, I was not even surprised in the slightest. His lawyer, David Schoen, told me that he had spent 20 hours on his pleading for that hearing, and that 5 minutes into his presentation, the judge cut him off and produced a 94-page opinion in which he had already decided that Mr. Bannon must go to prison, which shows you, folks, that the law, the facts, the evidence doesn't matter. In this particular case, Judge Nichols contradicted everything he had said about this case in the earlier proceedings on it. Bannon's defense that he relied on the advice of counsel and that his counsel had told him that he did not have an obligation to testify because President Donald Trump had asserted executive privilege over his testimony, that he acted in the only lawful way that he could, but that did not matter. So I think that at this point, Steve Bannon, if he is remanded July 1st and he serves 4 months, he will get out a couple days before the general election. I really am perplexed, I must say, as to why he did not do what I did when I was subpoenaed. I fulfilled my legal obligations. I showed up and I asserted my Fifth Amendment rights, not because I did anything wrong, not because I had anything whatsoever to hide, but because I knew in this rigged January Select Committee, anything you did say would be twisted into some kind of a process crime. And therefore, I fulfilled my obligations under the subpoena. I'm not really sure why Bannon did that. Your reaction to this news that Steve Bannon will be incarcerated?
Well, Steve Bannon has a lot of issues. He's had a lot of issues going back to your very trial. So I'm going to say this. I had my own feelings about him because I know that he perjured himself at your trial when he was there. He said one thing to the House committee at that time and another thing at your trial, which contradicted it, because in one area he said you were not the access point to WikiLeaks. On the other side, he said you were. And without his testimony, your trial would have never ended in a conviction because they used his word. He was the only guy with any kind of credibility at that trial. So that was the beginning part of him. He then was involved in this Build the Wall scam where everybody else had to face prison time. He got pardoned for it, but now he's got that case coming up again in Brooklyn because they re-indicted him on that. And it's going to be under Juan Merchan in September of this year. So he's got a lot of problems coming up. He's had a whole bunch of problems. All he had to do here, Roger, and I can attest this because I had to be in front of that January 6th committee, as you remember, and I didn't plead the fifth. I actually spoke to them, which you can see online. There was nothing for me to hide. But Steve Bannon wanted to hide behind this thing that he had executive privilege, and Peter Navarro did the same thing, but yet Peter Navarro was treated completely different than Steve Bannon. So and he was in a different court with a different judge, and it's in the same district and a different judge. But yet Peter Navarro, he wanted to appeal. His appeal was heard immediately. He was told that it was denied on the three justices, and then he was ordered to go to jail immediately. Steve Bannon was allowed to stay out from November until now. And then when his appeal was finally heard 7 months or 7 months ago, they finally made a ruling 8 months later, which is odd. And then they said, well, we deny you. And now all of his ways out have been exhausted, so now he has to go to prison. I don't think he should be treated any different than anybody else. I mean, he sure as hell was willing to lie to put you in prison. So that just shows you what kind of a guy you're dealing with. I know this guy says he's the voice of MAGA. Go out on, actually, there's an article about him on darktruths.net. And the title is Steve Bannon visited sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein in New York and Paris and coached a pedophile for a 60 minutes interview. It's by Thomas Paine. It's quite interesting read. And that's all you need to know right there in a headline about Steve Bannon. He's a man of many hidden truths that people really don't know about unless you look at. So I just think that he should be treated no different than Peter Navarro, who unfortunately has been serving his time that he got, unfortunately. And Steve Bannon has been out there running around the country. I don't know on whose dime, but he's running around the country while Peter Navarro has been rotting in prison, and that's unfair.
Well, what you say is true, Sal. Steve Bannon testified before the House Intelligence Committee when asked by Adam Schiff whether he ever spoke to me about WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, or the allegedly stolen emails. He said no. And Schiff said on no occasion. Bannon said no on no occasion. At my trial, when asked the exact same question, he said yes. Stone brought it up in every phone conversation we had in 2016, and I considered him our access point with WikiLeaks, which I most definitely was not. No less than Jonathan Turley noted in the New York Post that both of those things cannot be true, and therefore Bannon has to have perjured himself in one place or the other. I can tell you which one it was, since I never discussed anything of the nature with Steve Bannon. But the Bible teaches us to forgive. It's the hardest single thing about being a Christian, particularly if you're Sicilian. It's the hardest possible thing. But I have forgiven Steve Bannon, but I have not forgotten that he was to help Robert Mueller send me to prison for 7 to 9 years, when in fact I had done nothing whatsoever wrong. Sal Greco, thank you so much for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger. It's been an honor, and check me out on YouTube at The Sal Greco Show.